Okay, so here we go. The playoff committee's freshly minted number one team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, our beloved alma mater, heads to Ann Arbor to face number 13 Michigan. High noon on Fox. Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt will be on the call, as they've been, it seems like, virtually every game this year. They're kind of like the voice of the Buckeyes so far this year. The line as it stands right now is Ohio State minus 8.5. The over-under is 50. I just had a quick peek at the weather forecast. Right now, according to the Weather Channel, mid-30s, only a 20% chance of the dreaded frozen mix, as Mr. Gallagher likes to call it. So we might not have quite the weather situation that we anticipated. Could be somewhat windy, though. Winds at about 13 to 15 miles per hour, according to the Weather Channel. So that's where we stand going into Saturday. Why don't we go around the horn here, guys, and get some initial impressions? Mike Corcoran, I'd like to start with you. Why don't you just give us a quick 1 minute or so preview of how you see this game?
Yeah, after last week, I was listening to the podcast. I'm surprised you guys didn't bring up how soft the middle looked. I thought someone said it earlier in the season how Werner and Borland are probably our weak spots. I thought that Will Levis got 8 yards up the middle, over the tackle, over the nose, the center every time he wanted it.
Yeah.
And normally that would be my biggest scare. That would worry me the worst, the most out of this game. But Michigan just doesn't have a running game. I mean, who do they got? That Charbonnet? What's that guy's? That French guy?
Yeah.
They got. I don't see Shea Patterson running it over. I think our secondary could finally. They haven't been tested all year. They haven't faced any kind of quarterback. Not that Shea Patterson's all that great, but I guess they're going to have to put it up, and I think our secondary's up for it. And then our offense, I think, will be ready. So
all right.
I'm not that worried about this game.
Okay. Go ahead, Paige.
You must have been listening to the Alternative North Stands podcast, because I totally brought that up.
Yeah, Paige did mention that.
What the fuck?
Stands, what is that? Oh, I haven't been listening.
It's the podcast you must have been listening to, because at the very end, Zach brought it. He asked if there were sort of any general concerns, and that was one of the things that I mentioned. So you clearly have
mentioned that like 3-4 games ago.
Yeah,
but we also addressed that too, Mikey. That that we hadn't, like, our defensive scheme was not planned for that. What's his face got hurt, and that's exactly right. So once they got adjusted, they were fine.
Yeah, I thought they were fine. Yeah, and Paige, you had mentioned that the week before, Johnny Langan, Rutgers quarterback, had some success, a little bit of success running the ball on, design quarterback runs, and he's a big dude, just like that Penn State kid, right? So yeah, maybe there's something there. I mean, I don't know that you can win a game like that. I mean, you might be able to have some success. But Chad, I agree with you. In the fourth quarter against Penn, Ohio State adjusted and they took that away, and in the end, it turned out to be a detriment to have such a young quarterback in there, because Ohio State was able to take advantage. He threw a terrible interception, just could not deal with Ohio State's pressure in the end. But yeah, you may be right. There might be something there, and Michigan does struggle to run the football. Maybe they do, deploy Shea Patterson more as a runner on design quarterback runs to get something going in the running game. You could be right about that. We'll see. Tim, how do you see this game going in?
I see it as the toughest game they're going to play all year, the toughest team. I think the way Michigan's playing right now, I think they're a better team than Penn State, meaning if they played again, I think Michigan would win. And it's a rivalry game, and it's away. And so, I was thinking about this. You guys may know this off the top of your head more than I do, but other than down 5-0 to Miami of Ohio, has Ohio State been down meaningfully in any game this year?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think we've trailed.
Yeah, I think the answer is no.
Mm-hmm. And
so that's a total wild card. If Michigan starts fast or whatever and we get down and it's, 17-7 or 14-0 or something like that, it's uncharted territory for us this year. We just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's possibility that happens. And again, we haven't seen what the response to that's going to be. So we had a nice 21-point cushion last week before we gave the ball away a bunch and Penn State scored. And so, we were still always leading in that game. I think it's going to be tough. And, hats off to Paige at midseason for calling this as the tough game. It always is. I think Michigan has looked very different the second half of the season. So, and then the last thing that kind of plays into my mind is, these guys had a historic loss last year. I mean, they got wiped off the field. And, they've been talking a lot about it. I was reading something about how, maybe they don't take the rivalry quite as seriously as we do, but I think they're taking 62 points last year and everyone who's still on that team very seriously. And, it's a motivating factor. So I expect they'll be ready to play.
Yeah. Well, as they should. I would certainly hope they would have taken that to heart, right, and personally. But you make a good point, right? I mean, sometimes injured pride can be a great motivator, especially in a rivalry game like this. Chad, why don't you tell us how you see this game going in?
Well, it's funny because I felt pretty confident, even a few weeks back when I had said that their offense was starting to click, that Big Jimmy was letting the rein, letting go a little bit of the reins and letting that offensive coordinator they brought in there, have a little bit more leeway. And obviously we see that they're playing a little bit faster on defense. And, over the last week, I'm a little bit more nerved up about this game than I was a month ago, 3 weeks ago, or, at the beginning of the season when we started the cast. But, I think we're going to be fine. We need to get out to a fast start, like Tim said. I would prefer not to get behind, obviously, but I think that the last week was big. The adversity that they faced last week was really the only, bogus thing that we even faced all year. I mean, remotely, and so I think that was a big thing that happened last week. I want to see just how long Harbaugh's wrinkleless khakis take to get wrinkled, because I think he's going to be freaking. But he's such a douchebag. But I'm excited, man. I look for Fields to have a good game, man. I look, like we talked last week. But Paige, I think you said it a couple of times. I think we're going to do a lot more on the offensive side than we did last week. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more. I'm sure they're going to get J.K. will see his carries as much as possible as well. But offensive line needs to step up. And I'm a little nerved up, man. I can't wait till fucking kickoff.
Yeah, hey, you and me both, man. I'm amped up as well. Matt, why don't you give us your initial impressions of how you see this game?
Well, first off, Tim, Paige is best. Like, this was the tough game call. We haven't played the game yet, so it's still it's still theoretically not a good call. Actually, I'm going to still call. We haven't trailed because there's a really good reason. We're a really good team. And I think that because we've had an aggressive mindset, that on both sides of the ball, it's served us well, and why we've had the season had be perfectly honest, a new sensation of having kind of an SEC mentality as a team where we just take people to the barn and beat the shit out of them. To Mike's point, though, is the biggest concern for me is how well these guys stop the run, even though that's not their Michigan strong suit. Tough Borland had a fantastic, almost revelatory game last year. So how he and with the addition of Browning play and kind of handle that run, because to me, the Hassan Haskins is the wild card for Michigan. The two games where he went over 100, he went 149 versus Notre Dame, and then 125 against the Illini. That's not small yards. I don't know why that Chardonnay has gotten in front of him, but I think he is the more dangerous thing, and he's going to one that I think that Michigan's going to try to be unconventional and maybe do more run than throw. the DBs have been tested and they're proven. They've been locked down the whole year. I don't think that there's anything going to prove it. Like, these receivers from Michigan are pretty good. And they're talent-wise, they're very good, but I don't think they have the quarterback or the instrument to show their talent at their full height. I just don't think it's possible. I think Patterson will beat us or hurt us more with his feet than with his arm.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think this will be a close game.
Wow. Okay. All right. Paige, last time we talked, you said you were pretty worried about this one. Are you still feeling that way?
I go back and forth. I think it's kind of funny just listening to everybody on this podcast. We all are very similar in age. So we all have the same John Cooper scars on our back. And I think that leads to a lot of the consternation that we all are probably feeling. But if you're somebody, if we had a 27-year-old on this podcast instead of 49 and 50-year-olds on the podcast, would they even remotely be worried about this game? I would tend to think they wouldn't.
Right.
But no, yeah, I'm. So on one hand, yes, I'm very nervous, but then on the other hand, it all comes down to matchups. And if you're Michigan, where do you love your matchups against Ohio State? I mean, okay, you've got great wide receivers. Okay, well, we have 3 corners that are all playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
Shea Patterson or Justin Fields. I'm taking Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Right. Offensive line, defensive line. You go down the line in just about every single place. We really have a decided advantage just from a personnel and talent perspective.
Yeah.
So why am I so goddamn nervous for this game?
Good question.
I don't know, but I am. And, I come back to the fact that, not only are rivalry games important and stuff like that, it's just that we are still living those John Cooper games. And I think it almost warps, it overcomes us than, just what we're seeing with our eyes that's happening in the current present day.
I was listening to the Letterman Row. They did a kind of a midweek podcast. And one of the guys has been covering Ohio State, he lived in Columbus, has been an Ohio State fan all his life, is like us. He's probably about the same age, and he's scarred from the John Cooper years. And then Austin Ward, who kind of runs Letterman Row, he used to write for ESPN. He's been covering Ohio State for about 8 years or 9 years. So all he knows is complete dominance from Ohio State. And the two of them are going back and forth. And Birmingham was like, look, you don't understand. You weren't around here for the Cooper years. That scarred me for life. It will always affect the way I view this game. But when we were talking a few, at the mid-year pod, we talked about which remaining game was the greatest concern for us. And I think it all came down to Penn State or Michigan. And, I think, Paige, and you and I kind of concluded that, really, I mean, if you're going by recent history, the game to be most concerned about was Penn State. And it's been that way for a few years. That's the team that has really been much more our equal on the field than Michigan, albeit there have been some close results in the Michigan game over the last 6 or 7 years as well. 2016, that game could have gone either way. 2013, you had a terrible Michigan team, actually, that year lining up to win the game with a 2-point conversion. So crazy things do happen in this game, even when one team, at least statistically, is much, much better than the other. And, we've been on the short end of that several times, but we've done it to Michigan as well. So I was when we hung up on Sunday, I was with you, Paige. I was concerned about this game. I was expecting a close game, bracing myself for a close game. And then I actually had a couple extra hours this week, and I kind of dove into the stats and dug as deep as I could. I'm not an analytical person when it comes to numbers typically. And then what was revealed was something I was surprised by what it revealed. First of all, at the beginning of the year, coming out of that Army game, we all talked about, Jesus Christ. I mean, they couldn't run the ball against Army. Shea Patterson couldn't hit the broadside of the barn with a football. And if you look at the numbers, while Michigan has been better and has looked better, they still can't run the ball. Look at just last week. I went through their numbers. I mean, last week against Indiana, they ran for 87 yards on 29 carries. The week before against Michigan State, 83 yards on 34 carries. The week before that against Maryland, who's terrible. Maryland should be a name your score, name your stat game for a program like Michigan. Maryland is awful. You should be able to do whatever you want against that team, much like Ohio State and Penn State did. They ran it for 154 yards, but on 34 carries. That's 4.6 yards per carry against that Maryland defense. So, the problems that were there at the beginning of the year are still there in the run game. They haven't changed. I mean, I think maybe we were all fooled, for a moment with that performance against Notre Dame where they ran for 300 yards, but it took them almost 60 attempts to get there, by the way. So Michigan still cannot run the football. They're 76th nationally in rushing offense. I heard an interesting stat on Bucknuts this morning. The team that has run the ball the best in this game, in other words, has come out with the most rushing yards in this game, has won the last 18 matchups. And Michigan is 76th in the country in rushing offense. Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, they're somewhere in the top 5. I don't have the numbers here in front of me. But a decided advantage for Ohio State in the run game. And if we're going to get weather, the run game's going to be crucial. I think that is a huge advantage for Ohio State that nobody's talking about. It's been kind of glossed over because we're seeing these sexy passing numbers from Michigan against the likes of Maryland and a Michigan State team that's in a tailspin and an Indiana team that's, solid, but let's face it, they're not the frickin' 86 Bears. So that's something that's been overlooked, I think, in the analysis is the fact that Michigan cannot run the football. And if you guys will indulge me, I got one more stat. Sorry, does someone have a comment before I go to the next stat?
No, go ahead, man.
Okay. If you guys will indulge me, just a couple more stats here, but I think they're revealing. The Michigan State passing attack, all right? They have explosive elements to the passing attack. I think Nico Collins is a very good wide receiver. I think he's one of the best in the country. I've been talking about him all year. I think that group of receivers is excellent. They're 18th in the country in passing yards completion. That's per completion, which is pretty good. But on the whole, the passing game is not, we're not talking about LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson type explosive. We're not even talking Ohio State explosive. Michigan State is 50th nationally in passing offense. By comparison, Ohio State is 49th, and that's just because we have great balance. Shea Patterson is 31st nationally in passing efficiency. That means there's 30 other starting quarterbacks in the FBS that are more efficient as passers. By comparison, Justin Fields is 4th. Shea Patterson is 74th in completion percentage. That means 73 other starting quarterbacks in the FBS are more accurate than Patterson. Justin Fields, by comparison, is 9th. Shea Patterson is only completing 59.5% of his passes this season. That's actually down 5 percentage points from last year. And I think where he makes up for it is they do have explosive down the field, vertical passing game. That is really kind of that is the bread and butter of their offense. They rely heavily on those plays to generate offense. So, Michigan is 34th in scoring offense. Ohio State is number 1 by comparison. Michigan State is 57th in offensive yards per play. Ohio State is 6th nationally. These are all national statistics. So while Michigan's passing attack, while their offense is better, it's still just kind of okay. It's not that good. I mean, that's what the numbers are telling me. And Tim, you made the point earlier. I mean, it's a rivalry game. There's emotion. There's injured pride. There's all the things that come with a rivalry. And I understand. They don't say like you can throw the statistics out the window for no reason, right? That's a cliche for a reason because sometimes they don't matter. But I do think they're revealing in this matchup, and it had me rethinking my pick. I think. Especially you're talking about an Ohio State defense that's in the top 3 or 4 in every defensive statistic that matters. And if they're able to take away the vertical passing game, those explosive plays down the field, and there's good reason to think that they can at least limit them, then you're left. Michigan's offense is left with a quarterback who's completing 59% of his passes and a running game that poses virtually no threat to that Ohio State defense. It's not like they're going to have to cheat a safety up into the box to stop it. I mean, they can go base and feel comfortable that they can stop that running game. So that I was very surprised to see that the Michigan offensive numbers were still pretty paltry relative to kind of these recent results. Anyway, thanks for indulging me on that long rant there about stats, guys. Do you guys have any comments? Matt, go ahead.
I think to put all that very succinctly, like they're one-dimensional, and a one-dimensional team is simply not going to beat this defense. They will not. You have to come at them with more things.
I agree.
And also psychologically, I mean, they got their ass kicked last year. What makes them think our team is better? So what makes them think like they're going to get revenge when they don't have as strong a defense and they don't have as strong of offense that they could be motivated by revenge? But I think there's also psychology that they were like, we need to prevent getting our ass beat that bad again. And I think that's a different way of, like, I think that's more the mindset that could be lingering as well.
Well, right. And you know, during that stretch during the Cooper years, when we just could not seem to summon, you know, our best performance in the Michigan game, it was almost always one of the worst games we played in a given season. You know, all it took was a fumble or a dropped pass or, you know, for the fans to groan, here we go again. And you can almost kind of see it in the body language of the players. So I don't know. I mean, Michigan may very well turn the tides on Saturday, but what I'm seeing in the numbers does not favor them, does not point to that. I'm sorry, it just doesn't.
Along with the numbers, Zach, I think the other thing, I was watching an interview with Day, and they spend a lot of time, they have this board that Pantone keeps of recruits. And somebody asked a question about, you know, Ohio State and Michigan don't really bump into each other a lot on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's exceptions like Donovan Peoples-Jones and stuff like that. But for the most part, given two schools that are pretty much next to each other, like, we're not recruiting the same places and the same caliber of kids. And I think that's what your stats are bearing out, is just, you look at the recruiting classes we've had over the last, 7 years versus what they've had, and they're not comparable. They're not comparable at all.
No.
And I think that's the big advantage that Ohio State has, is that they've got the athletes, and this year in particular, they've got the coaching. Mm-hmm. Meyer was great in his own way, and he obviously was perfect against Michigan. I think a lot more from motivation. But I think this year, I think in every aspect, our kids are being coached better than they have been in recent memory.
I mean, like, look at Damon Arnett or Pete Warner, even Tuff Borland, guys like that were considered the weak link of those defense. Well, Okudah for sure. You could see Okudah come on toward the end of last season, but I'm talking about the guys that were kind of viewed as the weak links of those defense last year. Those guys are playing well this year.
Zach, I've read a lot of things that, like, a lot of NFL scouts are big on Warner, man, because he can, like, in coverage. He's
good in coverage. Yeah. He's a big dude, too. He's like 6'3". So I think you make an excellent point there, Tim, and I totally agree that they are getting better coaching for sure. I totally agree on that. So here's a question, and Paige, I think you were getting at this. All right, so, we're playing sandlot football. Let's break up both rosters. We pick two captains to pick teams. Yeah, how many Ohio State players are selected before the first Michigan player? Right? Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins, those are the first. I mean, all four of those guys are finalists for major individual awards, in some cases multiple awards. Young, Okudah, Fields, Dobbins. You might even be pulling Shaun Wade off the board. Malik Harrison off the board.
Olave.
I mean, it's just so. I think, to your point, Paige and Tim, you guys are getting at the same thing. That I think there's a distinct talent advantage here. Not to say Michigan doesn't have good players. They have some good players, to be sure. But I think in terms of the volume is clearly on Ohio State's side. The statistics point to that, and we're not talking about just a handful of statistics on one side of the ball or the other. I mean, on both sides of the ball, and all the meaningful statistics, Ohio State is right there. I mean, in the top three, and ahead of Michigan in all of them. The other thing. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, I was no. Why don't you go ahead? I was going to move us to a different.
And to the point that Tim and Paige talked to, but also culturally, I think we have a national championship mindset. I think Harbaugh and how he has the culture there is significantly different. I think that they bring guys and they sell them on, we're going to get you ready for the pros. You're going to get the top of, the top training. You're going to get the support. We're going to make you into a better person, better player. And we're going to be there and be that support system. But also ultimately we're going to make you into winners. I don't think that everything that I read about from Chase Winovich to what everyone else says about how they view their program, I just don't think it's at that same level an approach that Urban and now Day does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I mean, that's why the rivalry is a 16-2 edge, Ohio State edge, right? I mean, I think we're starting to see, we're going on 2 decades now. So, I mean, now I do have some questions that, lingering from Penn State. I mentioned these in the post-game pod on Sunday. So, how much is left in the tank for Ohio State coming off a pretty tough physical game with Penn State right now? Will Michigan be getting an OSU team that's somewhat depleted emotionally and physically? How nicked up is Justin Fields? There's some rumors going around. There's maybe an injury to his non-throwing hand, something with his ankle. We all saw that on, at the end of the game. Fields went down briefly and left the field on his own power, but appeared to be a little nicked up. Will J.K. Dobbins be worn out from a career-high 36 carries against Penn State? Will Ohio State be as motivated knowing they've already punched their ticket to Indy and can win the conference and probably make the playoffs regardless of the outcome in Ann Arbor on Saturday? Are they riding high from being, freshly minted by the playoff committee as the number 1 team? If any of these questions could be answered in the affirmative, then I think Michigan playing at home, maybe in cold weather, maybe a little precipitation, with injured pride from the 62-39 loss last season, has a shot, right? If we can answer those questions in the affirmative. But I mean, I think that's what you're banking on as a Michigan fan. That's what you're hoping for as a Michigan fan. I'm sorry, give me the talent every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Give me the horses. I'll take the studs. And those are clearly on Ohio State's side.
Yeah, I'll take Mariota, his training program. So I don't think there's going to be any letdown there.
Yeah. I mean, those are. I'm not sure I believe in any of those questions, but I'm just throwing them out there. Mike, what do you think about all this stuff that we've mentioned? Do you have anything you want to say?
Well, we're 8.5-point favorites in Ann Arbor, so all of that, the talent on the field is accounted for. We're supposed to win. We're number 1. They're 13. I was looking at last year's game. Were they favored last year?
They were
number 4.
Yeah. They were.
They were, weren't they?
Yeah.
And the halftime score was 24-19. I think we were up, and the way I know that, I was just watching it earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, that game turned really crazy in the second half. There was big play after big play. We had the block punt. We had Paris Campbell go the distance.
Yeah.
They got blown out by the final score, but that just turned into a crazy game. I mean, we also gave up 40 points too.
Yeah, well, we gifted them that touchdown, the touchdown on the muffed kickoff there.
Yeah,
right? They were starting to run away with that.
Right.
And we gave them a free touchdown there.
62 point. My whole point on that is that even though you could match up on the field, and you're supposed to win the game, you're favored and you're away.
Yeah.
That's how much they were favored. Imagine if it was Ann Arbor last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Responded a lot more.
Well, it's a good point.
So Michigan go crazy ways.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Michigan.
You ready for predictions or?
Yeah, in a second here. But I was just gonna say to your point, Michigan is they're a different team at home, right? Their last loss at home was 2 years ago to Ohio State. That's the last time they lost at home. So they do play better at home, and yeah, you definitely have to account for that for sure. Well, so if you guys are ready, why don't we go around the horn with predictions? Mike, why don't I start with you? Do you got a prediction for us?
These games, Michigan's been up for these games, and they're definitely going to feel, getting 62 points hung on them last year, and they'll come out swinging. They've been punching above their weight for the last 8 years, really, with the exception of even 2015. They were we were only up a touchdown in the third quarter. So
that's right.
What I'm saying, they come out ready to play and play as well as they can. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. By the time the third, fourth quarter comes around, all the motivation, all that stuff kind of just gets swallowed up by the players on the field. We're definitely superior again. And so I'm going to go with 35-17.
Wow, 35-17. All right.
Buckeye.
I like it. Tim, what do you think? Give us your prediction.
Yeah, tough game, 4-quarter game. I'm getting a different weather report than you got, Zach. I'm seeing 70% frozen mix, 37 degrees.
Wow. Okay.
Rain in the morning, and maybe getting colder. I just think that makes it tough to do a lot on offense. Like the fact that I think Michigan is not really going to run the ball that well against us, so I think it favors us.
I agree.
But I think it's a slugfest. I think it's close the whole way, and I think Ohio State 31-21.
31-21 Buckeyes. Okay, so both of you guys think they cover.
Yep.
All right, good. Chad, give us your prediction, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going to go make this short and sweet. I'm going with Ohio State 42, Michigan 28.
Wow, you think they put up 28 on us, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but we put up 42 on them. All right, I like it. Mr. Sloan, what do you think?
So, the biggest obstacle and the biggest people that are under spotlight right now are Justin Fields and Ryan Day. They have not – this is their first Michigan game, one as a coach, one as a starting QB. Everything else does not matter right now. Whatever they've done before this game does not matter because this game rides – their reputation starts here. This is where – your reputation is incomplete until this game is over. So I think that they will both be coming fired up. This will be the 8th win for the Buckeyes. So 8 times 7 is 56. There'll be a field goal to start the game. So final score 59-6. Then Slaughter.
Yeah, baby.
Look,
59 to what?
6.
59-6.
Love it, Small.
Wow.
Like, there may be a frosty mix, but they're not building snow castles in front of the end zone, so they'll be getting there okay.
All right. I love it, man. I would love to see that. I don't need to sweat this one out, man. Paige, give us your prediction, my friend.
So, unlike Plummer, I'm not going to be short and sweet on this because I've actually given this quite a lot of thought. And Sloaner just touched on it. And so, to me, this game comes down to 2 people. And the first person is Chase Young. And we never really talk about him, which is interesting. But he's on our team. He's not on their team. And I think Chase Young is probably worth 10 points a game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, how valuable is that guy? How disruptive is that guy? And I was thinking about what's a number you could place on him in any individual game. And I think 10 might even be conservative. So
it is.
I think that is just a huge, huge advantage for us. But the second one, and Sloaner just said it, is Ryan Day. So let's talk about Ryan Day. I've been on the record from the very beginning of this season on this podcast of saying, hey, I'm a little worried about him. And it's actually the reason why I thought this team could be, lose 2 or 3 games. He is a first-time head coach, and he's a first-time head coach at Ohio State. That's a big deal. And so I worry about that. And I worry about it in the biggest moments, in the biggest games. And this is, you couldn't have drawn this up anymore for all the marbles at the end of the season, a playoff berth on the line against your arch rival. You're undefeated.
You're number 1.
You're number 1. Yeah, now exactly. That's another point. They just threw your number 1 on him on this, and I just wonder if the pressure doesn't get to him a little bit. And I think you can almost even start to point to that a little bit against, well, hold on before you say no. There were some curious things last week against Penn State. Zach, you brought it up. Just that last series with Justin Fields, like, what were you thinking? Yeah. And preparation and in-game coaching adjustments, he has not been tested. I'm sorry, he just hasn't. And it worries me. So I tend to think that, maybe this moment might be a little bit too big for him. And it makes me start to think, throw all the stats out and line up all the cliches, and Michigan's going to pull this game out for that reason alone.
No way. That's not what
you're saying. I think. But then I think maybe there's some point in the middle of this game. I was talking with Sloaner about this. We were texting. And I was like, I'm going to predict Michigan wins this game. But then I thought, you know what? That son of a bitch, some point in the middle of this game, he sees the Matrix. He literally, everything slows down. He understands exactly what he's doing. He understands he's essentially the one. We all think he's the one. And the moment isn't too big for him. And he actually pulls this out. And so I'm riding with my boy Sloaner. I think this game is 52-20. I think he is the one that's he was meant for this. I can't believe it, but I don't think the moment will be too big for him. And I think Ohio State just rolls this game. And we go back to every talent disparity that we've talked about already. We're the better team, and he gets it done.
Wow.
Nice. Nemo.
Nemo, baby.
Dude.
That's great.
You were fun.
And then former Trinity because he loves Ryan Day.
That's great. I mean, I would love to see that. Funny enough, my father-in-law, Ken Meyer, his prediction was 52-21 Ohio State. So you guys are both kind of in lockstep. Well, Sloaner as well. And that makes a lot of sense given, all the numbers that, I had mentioned earlier, just kind of digging deeper into Michigan's paltry running game and, their inability to, Shea Patterson's inaccuracy and inconsistencies. The other thing I was thinking is, statistically speaking, Michigan's put up another really good, Don Brown has put another really good defense out there this year, statistically. You know how I was just thinking, there are offenses like Mike Leach's offenses are always going to be really pass heavy. It's kind of a system. They say about quarterbacks, well, he's a system quarterback, right? He puts up a lot of good numbers, but the system is designed for that quarterback to put up a lot of numbers, like in a Mike Leach offense. I wonder if the same thing kind of exists on the other side of the ball, though. And if it does, it would be a Don Brown defense, wouldn't it? I mean, I think Michigan has some good players. I'm not saying they don't, but I don't know. I still don't see a defense that has a bunch of frontline, beasts like Micah Parsons and Gross Matos, those guys from Penn State last week. Those guys stood out to me as, elite talent. And I'm not sure I see that on Michigan's defense. I think they've got a good system defensively, and you can plug guys in there who maybe aren't great talents, but can play well and be effective. And I feel that's kind of what Michigan has defensively. I hope I don't end up eating those words, but I don't really see the Michigan defense as much different from Wisconsin or Penn State. I think we did fine on that side of the ball. I expect Ohio State to be able to move the ball on the ground and through the air. I was much more conservative in my prediction. I have Ohio State 38-17. I just think too much talent. The motivation is there. The statistical profiles of both teams do not point to a close game. And if you're Michigan, you're clinging to, the hopes that Ohio State comes out of this Penn State game depleted. You're clinging to the hope that Justin Fields is dinged up, that, as I said before, Dobbins is worn out from so many carries last week. Everyone's talking about how Michigan, they found something in the second half of the Penn State game. They still lost the fucking game. And since then, they beat a Notre Dame team that I don't believe in. I'm sorry, I don't believe in Notre Dame. No one's talking about Notre Dame. Look at their schedule when we hang up. They've beaten absolutely nobody. And then after them, you've got a 38-7 win at Maryland. You beat a Michigan State team that's in a tailspin. You beat Indiana, who's 39-14. Indiana's like the Washington Senators what was the team the Harlem Globetrotters play? It's like the
Generals.
The Washington Generals of the Big Ten. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're hanging your hat on if you're Michigan. And if they're going to get Ohio State, it's not going to be this year. This team is just too damn good. The last time we rolled in Ann Arbor with a team this good, I think it was 2015, and the game wasn't close. Now, granted, that Michigan team wasn't as good as this one, so that's why I think this one's going to be a little closer. But I got Ohio State 38, Michigan 17. Any other comments, guys? What do you guys think? Anything else that we want to comment on?
I will say one thing. My sleeper pick of surprise Buckeye of the game is I think Garrett Wilson may have a big game.
Oh, I like that. All right, let's do that. Let's go around the horn real quick, and I want to get your kind of, sleeper pick or under the radar guy, somebody that maybe we don't see coming who's going to stand out. Okay, you got Garrett Wilson. Tim, you got a guy?
Master Teague.
Master Teague. All right.
Wow, I love it.
Well, and after the workload that Dobbins had last week, I would think they're going to give more carries to Teague in this game. I like that pick. Paige, how about you? Sorry, go ahead.
With
Tim.
the weather, I think he's gonna destroy their defense.
I like that. I like it. Yeah, that's a nice pick. Paige, what do you think? You got a X factor?
How about Austin Mack? Little Austin Mack
senior
action, right?
Yeah.
Senior.
Nice.
Last game. I'll roll with Austin.
Well, he had that amazing catch in the 2017 game that really turned that game around, right? That was on 3rd and long. I think there was like consecutive false start penalties. Haskins had just come in, and everything looked like we were in dire straits, and he made that amazing catch. Got drilled by the safety, hung on, and that when Ohio State took control of the game from there. I like that pick. Chad, how about you?
I don't know if this is going to be like under the radar, but I'm going to go with Benjamin Victor, man. He's going to have a big game.
I like that. Benjamin Victor. Okay. Yeah, that's a guy who's kind of been up and down throughout his career, but he actually has had some big moments. Like the Penn State game last year. I like that one. Mike, how about you?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a defensive player. I think Harrison is going to have a lot of action in the game. They're going to need him. They're going to run at him, or at least in his area, and he's going to make a big difference. He's going to. I'm going to say he's going to have
Malik or Zach.
Yeah, is it Malik Harrison or Zach
Malik.
Harrison?
No, the linebacker. The linebacker.
All right, yeah.
38.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah.
He's going to come into play. He's going to get some kind of a turnover and some kind of a game changer.
All right. Well, this is hardly an under the radar player, and he hasn't been under the radar all year. But I like Chris Olave in this game to make his mark, much as he did last year. I know Michigan's going to be focusing on him, but Olave to me seems like the kind of player that's taking note of all the conversation around the Michigan receivers going into this game, and I think he's going to take this opportunity to say, "Hey, don't forget about me." And I'm looking for Olave to have another big game in this one.
Z, look for Luke Farrell to have a big game.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, the tight ends. All right. I like it. Guys, any other comments on Ohio State, Michigan before we maybe have a quick peek at Wisconsin and Minnesota? All right. Let's move on. So after Ohio State, Michigan, we will all be tuning in to find out our opponent in the Big Ten title game. Wisconsin visits Minnesota. It's on ABC. It's a 12:30 Pacific kick, 3:30 Eastern. Michigan comes into the game number 8, according to the playoff committee. Wisconsin's number 12. Minnesota's 10-1. Wisconsin's 9-2. Wisconsin is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Why don't we go around? You don't have to give a prediction if you don't want to, but let's go around real quick and get some impressions of this game. Mike, how do you see this one playing out?
I love to see Minnesota pull this out. I don't know if they have it. Where is the game again?
It's in Minneapolis. It's at Minnesota.
Good. All right, I'll go for Minnesota. It's mostly with my heart because I'd rather face them. in the championship game. I just think it'd be more of a unique game.
Yeah, I don't careful what you wish for. Yeah, no, all right.
Yeah, no, come on. I'm not worried about either one of those teams,
Okay.
but I know we can handle Wisconsin if
Yeah, all right.
Wisconsin beats them.
Fair enough. Okay,
Fine.
Paige, how do you see that one playing out?
Well, I'll say one thing. If we lose, and I'm not saying we're going to lose, I won't be watching any more college football on Saturday. That's for sure.
Hey, at 52-20, I think you're feeling pretty confident.
Yeah. The TV
How are we
will be
going
going
to
on.
lose if it's 52-20?
I didn't say. I'm just making a point. I'll probably go on like a 13-mile run and just freak the hell out. But I'm with Mikey. I'd like to see Minnesota pull it out. I don't know. I just don't think they're going to. I think Wisconsin's probably going to win this game. Probably win it fairly convincingly.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
In Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim, how do you see this one playing out?
I haven't. I've obviously seen Wisconsin. I haven't seen a ton of Minnesota. I think if this were a bowl game, it'd be the Who Cares Bowl. I hope Minnesota wins because I'm just kind of tired of playing Wisconsin. We seem like we play them every year in the Big Ten championship, and now we've played them in the regular season. Like, I actually think Minnesota's got some momentum as a team, as a program. I can't say that I necessarily think they have better players. I think Wisconsin probably does, but Minnesota may have the momentum, so I'll go with Minnesota.
Okay. Matt?
I think this will actually be a pretty exciting game, and it will be something fun to watch after our slaughter against Michigan. I think Minnesota has the scar of a loss, which is a good thing. I think that will motivate them to come in and just take it to Wisconsin playing at home. They play very impressively at home, as you saw against Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a 24-17, snot knocker for the Paul Bunyan Award, whatever the fuck they call it thing.
I think that's right. Paul Bunyan's axe.
That's Corcoran's favorite thing, right? Mike, you didn't even talk about the trophy.
It's not a pig, right? It's an axe. Chad, did I get your prediction?
Yeah.
I don't think I did. How do you see this one, Chad?
I'll take Minnesota 28, Wisconsin 23.
Yeah, I like.
They're not going to beat Minnesota in Minneapolis. I don't think. Nope.
Yeah. Okay, so you like Minnesota? Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
Minnesota. Oh no, I mean I know you're wrapping around. I wanted to hear your prediction, but I just wanted to give one final thought after you do your prediction on the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Minnesota in this game. I think they're more dynamic in the passing game. I like their quarterback, and they've got 2 NFL wide receivers, man. Those guys can play. They came into the shoe last year and had a different quarterback, but those 2 receivers, Johnson in particular, played really well. And, I think you've got to be balanced. You have to be dynamic in the passing game to win to at least, get to a conference title game. I don't know about Wisconsin. I don't think they've got enough offensively. And on the road, I'm taking Minnesota in the Fighting PJ Flex. Chad, what were you going to say before we wrap her up?
I just wanted to say I think it's pretty sweet that Sloaner's taking the train out to New Canaan to watch it with TG. I'm assuming PVH, you and Corcoran are watching the game together?
Affirmative.
Yeah, all right.
Good. And Z, I'm sure you'll be with some crew out there, perhaps Simon or whatnot.
Yeah, well, no, it's just be my father-in-law. We'll be watching it together, but we're 3-0 together.
Cool.
So,
but I just have a good feeling about the Sloaner Gallagher being together for this game.
I
think that's
Chad,
important.
Is it going to be you, Monkey, and Courtney?
that would be a negative. Now I did ask Monkey. To come down and watch it with Hogs and Davis and Smoothie and Dolan and I, but he was like, "Oh, dude, I can't do it, dude." I go, "Well, why not, bro?" He goes, "Well, lots of reasons." I'm like, "Well, I know one."
Poor guy.
Well, don't go there, dude. I'm like, "Okay, bro."
Yeah, why don't you give his 3 new kids a hug for us all?
Yeah, exactly, dude.
all right, fellas. Well, hey, listen, thanks so much for making the time. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. And
Yeah, you too.
enjoy the time off. We
Go
will
Bucs.
go Bucks. We
Go
will
Bucs.
speak on Sunday.